Hello and welcome back. So far we've created these 4 methods. Now we want to create 2 additional methods. But before we create that, let's go to our buyer model, the schema file or model file. Now we want to create a method that will be used to update this is seller property. Okay, by default it's going to be false. Okay, then when a buyer creates a seller's account, then we need to update this property to true. Okay, so the buyer is actually a seller. Okay, so create a method to update this, and then we're also going to create another method to update this purchased gigs array. Okay, so the method we'll use it to add or remove. Okay, so let's go ahead. Right here I'll create a function, so const, I'll call this updates buyer is seller prop. Okay, async, and this will take the email of type string. It's not going to return anything, so promise of type void. Okay, so we just want to update. Okay, and then how do we update? We call await and then buyer model dot updates one. Okay, so we want to update just one document dot exec. Okay, so we call this exec right here. And then which document do we want to update? Any document where the email matches this email. Let me call this buyer, or let me just use email, so it's going to be the shorthand. So any document where email matches whatever email the user is sending right here. And then what do we want to update? If he finds it, what do we want to update? We want to use the set operator. So set, what do we want to update? Is seller. Okay, set is seller to true. Okay, so if a buyer becomes a seller, we update this property and set it to true. I can export this, and then the next function I want to create is going to be a function to update this purchase gig. So if a buyer purchases a gig from a seller and then the seller delivers, then we are going to add the ID of that gig into this array. But if the buyer purchased the gig and then after a period of time the seller, or maybe the buyer, asks the seller to cancel the order. Okay, so if the seller cancels the order, then that gig will need to remove it. If it's already added here, we need to remove it from this purchased gigs array. Okay, so I'll change this to updates buyer purchased gigs prop. Okay, and now for this we're taking 3 properties. Okay, we're taking the buyer ID of type string. We're taking the purchased gigs array, so purchased gigs, this is going to be of type string. Okay, this is just going to be the ID of the gig that the buyer purchased, and then the type. Now we are going to use this to either add or remove, so that's why I'm setting this type. Okay, now here it's going to be ID, any document where the ID matches the buyer ID. Okay, and then here I can, for now I can remove this because I want to use this to add or remove. I'll say if type is equal to purchased dash gigs, then I want to push into this array. Okay, so I'll use the push operator and I want to push gigs into purchased gigs. Let me just set this, let me say purchased gig ID. So I want to push the purchased gig ID into this array. Okay, so if type is equal to purchased gig, we are going to set this, else I want to pull from the array. Okay, so this is going to use the pull operator. Okay, and let me just export this, and then we have the function that we need. Okay, so if if type is equal to purchased gigs, then we push the purchase gig ID into this purchased gigs list. Else, if it's anything other than this type, we remove. So we pull out of the array. So we remove the ID from the array. Okay. So right now, these are the methods that we need for our buyer's service.